after you started kind of growing my knowledge base and cancer hit, I knew the writing was on the wall that I was going to have to leave the Air Force. They were going to give me the boot. And so I started growing my real estate network. Every book that I read told me to go to local meetups. That was like step number one, go to local meetups. And this is where I started meeting awesome people. Chris and Ariane Lemire. This is also an event where I met Chris Bounds out in California, Chris and Jamie. It was awesome. So these meetups were pretty massive for me, massively influential, where I was meeting people who were seemingly average people doing extraordinary things. And when I see people that I can relate to, I'm like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And so it started shifting my mentality even more to, rather than seeing like, okay, yeah, real estate can be fun. I can make some money and I think I enjoy it, to like starting to see the potential in it. That mindset shift was really what I started to get out of these meetups, as well as the networks. This is also, as a young agent, I went through these meetups, and this is where I met my first client who I landed a deal with, right? Because I need to start to expand your network. You need to get that exposure. And the only way to do that is by getting yourself out there. And these meetups were pretty massive for that. And you don't need to focus on real estate itself for these meetups, or investing itself. I'm an invested-minded agent, and that's what I do. I know we're an invested agent, so that's probably what we're all thinking here. But if you are, into gardening, and there's a gardening meetup, and even if there's not, you can start one. Like, just go around what naturally you're like attracted to, and that'll help you out a ton. Along with the local meetups, there's RIAs, for me. So, and as an invested mind person, there's other associations for other niches if you want to get into them. But, I started joining the RIAs, and that really helped out a ton. That's where I met multiple partners on multiple flips. And I met some other people through my local sphere of influence who started within these local RIAs that we partnered with on Airbnbs. And so we started growing our Airbnb portfolio through other partnerships. And if I hadn't gone to these RIAs and gone to these meetups and intentionally talked about my goals and desires, they would have never come. So it's one thing to attend these meetups, but it's another one to say, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Who wants to help me grow what my goals are? And then naturally, people are going to be attracted to you if you actually truly have ambitious goals and you do what you're going to say and you follow through. It's just going to naturally come to happen. And the last thing was that leap of faith for me. One of my biggest kind of leaps of faith was going to the real estate summit. Flip Hacking Live is what it was, out where I met Chris and Jamie initially, Ariane and Chris Lemire, who are right here. They took me out there essentially, and that was truly the final step for my mindset shift, to see people locally doing big things, and you go out to this other event where people are doing huge things, and you're like, wow, like, if these seemingly average people, not to be insulting, but like average people doing these massive things, like it was truly a mindset shift. What one man can do, another can do, and it's truly the case. I attended local masterminds as well, where I actually paid to do these masterminds, and through these masterminds, that's where I met some of my first investors, where I was able to get my first passive portfolio, where I'm part owner of 167 units there. I met another future partner where we did a 17-unit mobile home portfolio purchase. I met other investors who brought me onto my first multifamily syndication as a sponsor and as a general partner. And so, just putting myself out there in all of these events, RIAs or attending local masterminds, or all of them, they all come together and form into one big success ball. All right. Along with that is networking. So continuing on the networking is how do you grow your network even more? And it's obviously through social media. For me, social media is just a way for me to document my success and my lessons learned. It allows your sphere of influence to join you on that journey of education. If you look here, this is one of my YouTube videos where 249 views on what is a self-directed IRA. I'm not out to be a YouTube star, but all I did was that 249. That was enough that one of my sphere of influence that hadn't talked to in 10 years, he reached out to me and said, "Hey man, I got 200 grand in my IRA. What do you want to do with it?" We ended up using it for a flip. He did really well with it, and then we're using it again on another multifamily purchase. So you don't need to be the star on everything you're doing, but you get your name out there enough, it's totally worth it. There's other things within social media. Obviously, LinkedIn. I've had a few posts there that have been pretty successful for me. Bigger Pockets, as an investor minded, has been a massive niche for me, and then obviously YouTube as well. But along those same lines, my intent when I'm posting is to be as authentic as possible, while just regurgitating other people's information. I'm not out to reinvent the wheel. I'm not out to teach you like some new technique. If I find something, I'm gonna teach it. You better believe it. But most of the information out there is just regurgitated through somebody else. And so, you can totally teach as you learn. You don't need to be the master.